The door closed in my face with a sound I will never forget. Not a slam, not quite. Alice was too refined for that. It was the soft, deliberate click of solid mahogany meeting its frame, the whisper of a deadbolt sliding into place, the mechanical finality of someone ending a conversation they never wanted to have. I stood there on her stone porch under the golden glow of her designer sconce lights, wearing clothes that smelled of 3-day-old sweat and cheap motel soap. My hands were dirty. My hair hung in greasy strands around my face. The plastic bag holding my few belongings had torn an hour ago, and I'd been carrying everything in my arms like some kind of refugee. Through the beveled glass panel beside her door, I watched my daughter walk away. She didn't look back. She picked up her phone, pressed it to her ear, and within seconds she was laughing. Actually laughing. I could see her reflection in the hallway mirror, her salmon-colored athleisure outfit that probably cost more than most people's weekly paycheck, her perfectly styled hair catching the light from her crystal chandelier. The chandelier I'd helped pay for. The house I'd given her the down payment for. The life I'd built for her brick by careful brick sacrifice, by silent sacrifice. "Mom," the word had come out of her mouth like an accusation just moments before. "What are you doing here looking like that? Not are you okay, not what happened, not even come inside. Just that. As if I were a thing, an embarrassment, a problem to be dealt with quickly before the neighbors saw. I'd told her everything. How I'd lost it all. How the business collapsed. How the creditors took the penthouse, the cars, everything. How I'd been sleeping in bus stations for 3 days. How I just needed a place to rest, just for one night, while I figured out what to do next." She'd listened with her arms crossed, blocking the doorway with her body, and when I finished, she'd looked past me. Actually looked past me, toward the neighboring mansions, more worried about who might be watching than about the woman who gave birth to her standing broken on her doorstep. "This isn't a good time," she'd said. Her voice was soft, controlled, the kind of tone she probably used in her consulting meetings. "Thomas has an important dinner with partners tonight. I can't deal with these types of situations right now." Situations. Her homeless mother was a situation. I am 62 years old. I have built a $58 million empire from nothing. I have negotiated with men who thought a woman had no place in the boardroom. I have survived the death of my husband, the betrayal of business partners, the crushing weight of expectations that would have broken lesser people. But nothing prepared me for the sound of my own daughter's door closing against me. The cold February air bit into my skin. My feet throbbed in these borrowed shoes. Somewhere in the distance I could hear the gentle hum of Wealth automatic garage doors closing security systems, arming the soft purr of luxury cars pulling into driveways. I looked down at my hands. Hands that had signed million-dollar contracts. Hands that had held my babies. Hands that had worked until the knuckles ached and the fingertips cracked. Now they were empty. I turned away from Alice's door and started walking. 2 miles to go. 2 miles to my second child's house, where I would knock on another door, tell the same story, and discover whether I had raised one monster or two. The street lamps flickered on as dusk settled over Golden Gate's gardens. Each light seemed to mock me, illuminating the gap between what I'd given and what I'd received. But this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of the test. The test that would reveal everything. Let me take you back. Back to the moment I decided to burn it all down. It was late on a Tuesday night. The kind of late where the cleaning crew had already left and the security guard's footsteps echoed through the empty hallways of the Miller Textile Building. 23 floors up in my corner office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, I sat alone. My name is Emma Miller, though most people in this industry just call me the Miller Widow, or if they're feeling generous, the woman who surprised everyone. 35 years ago, I married Jonathan Miller, heir to a modest textile importing business. When he died of a heart attack 12 years ago, the vultures started circling immediately. Partners betting on my failure. Competitors sharpening their knives ready to carve up what was left. Banks suddenly wanting to reassess our credit lines. Everyone expected me to sell, take the money and fade into comfortable widowhood. I didn't. I worked 18-hour days. I learned every aspect of a business my husband had kept me carefully distant from. I negotiated contracts at 3 a.m. with suppliers in Bangladesh who thought they could lowball a grieving widow. I swallowed humiliations that would have destroyed most people, the banker who patted my hand and suggested I let the men handle this, the board member who asked if I understood basic accounting, the client who looked past me to address his questions to my male assistant. I didn't just save the company. I multiplied it by 5. Miller Textiles now supplies major clothing chains across North America. We employ over 3,000 people. Last year's revenue, $92 million. And do you know who I did it all for? I looked down at the papers spread across my mahogany desk. Financial statements, bank transfers, a decade of allowances, bailouts, temporary loans that were never repaid. Alice, $847,000 over 10 years. Lucas, $623,000 over 10 years. Hunter, zero. Hunter had never asked for a dime. My phone buzzed. I picked it up knowing what I'd find. 3 missed calls. 3 voicemails. I played them. First, Alice's voice, bright and cheerful in that way that always preceded a request. "Hi, Mom. Hope you're doing well. Listen, Thomas and I are renovating the kitchen. You know how outdated it was, and the contractor's quote came in higher than expected. We need about $100,000 to cover the overage. Can you transfer it by Friday? Love you. Not how are you. Not are you taking care of yourself, just we need." Second, Lucas rushed and businesslike. "Mom, it's me. I have an investment opportunity with a colleague. Medical technology startup, very promising. I need $70,000 by next week. I'll send you the details, but it's time sensitive. Talk soon." The details never came. They never did. Third, Hunter's voice, warm and concerned. "Hi, Mom. Just calling to check in. Saw the news about the textile tariff disputes and thought it might be stressful. You doing okay? Want to grab coffee this weekend? Love you. Bye." 3 calls. 2 demanded money. 1 asked if I was human. I set the phone down and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Alice was probably already planning her new kitchen. Lucas was likely calculating his investment returns. And Hunter was probably grading papers at his modest dinner table in his modest house, living his modest life. The life I'd secretly been disappointed in. I'd paid for Alice's MBA in Switzerland, $120,000 in tuition alone, not counting the living expenses. I'd funded Lucas through medical school nearly $200,000 for the education that made him the successful cardiovascular surgeon he is today. Hunter had gone to state school, became a teacher, married Grace, a girl who worked in a textile factory before becoming a community gardener. At family dinners, Alice would make comments. "What a shame Hunter settled for so little." Lucas would nod sympathetically. He had so much potential, and I'd stayed silent. I'd let those poison words hang in the air because some part of me, God forgive me, agreed with them. Some part of me had looked at Hunter's small house and his teacher's salary and his wife with her dirt-stained hands, and I'd felt disappointed. What kind of mother was I? The kind who measured success in dollars, the kind who equated love with usefulness, the kind who had created monsters and didn't even know it. My computer screen glowed in the darkness. I pulled up my calendar. Tomorrow, a meeting with Robert Hayes, my lawyer for 30 years, the only person besides my late husband who'd seen me at my lowest and stuck around anyway. I picked up the phone and called him. "Emma." His voice was alert despite the hour. Robert never slept much. "Everything okay?" "No," I said. "Nothing's okay. I need you to help me with something. Something that's going to sound insane." "Go on." "I need to disappear. Completely. I need everyone to think I've lost everything, the company, the money, all of it. I need to become invisible. And then—" I paused, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "Then I'm going to knock on my children's doors and see who opens them." The silence on the other end lasted a long time. "Emma," Robert finally said, his voice careful. "Are you sure you want to know the answer to that question?" I looked at those financial statements again, at the years of giving, at the lifetime of sacrifice, at the 3 phone calls that had finally broken something inside me. "Yes," I said. "I'm sure, because right now I have 3 children. After this, I'll know how many I really have. This could destroy your relationships with them." "Robert," I said quietly, "I think they might already be destroyed. I just haven't been willing to see it." Robert arrived at my office the next morning with coffee and concern written all over his face. He was 70, silver-haired, and had the bearing of someone who'd seen every kind of human drama play out in conference rooms and courtrooms. But this, I could tell, was new territory even for him. "You spent all night thinking about this," he said. It wasn't a question. "I did. And you still want to go through with it?" "I do." He set his briefcase on my desk and sat down heavily. "Emma, you're talking about subjecting yourself to homelessness. You're 62 years old. This isn't some game. The streets are dangerous. The weather's brutal. You could get hurt or worse. I won't be on the streets, I said. Not really. I'll stay in a budget motel the first night. Then I'll go to their houses the next day. That's it. 36 hours maximum. 36 hours can be a lifetime in the wrong circumstances. Robert, I built a company from nothing while grieving my husband. I've negotiated with people who wanted to see me fail. I've survived things that would have broken most people. I met his eyes. I can handle 36 hours of discomfort if it means learning the truth about my own children. He studied me for a long moment. Then he opened his briefcase. Fine, but we do this my way with proper safety protocols. He pulled out a folder. Here's what I'm proposing. You check into the roadside inn on Highway 40. It's cheap, it's anonymous, but it's relatively safe. You stay there one night. Agreed. You'll have a burner phone with my number programmed in. You call me every 6 hours. If I don't hear from you, I send a security team to your last known location. Fine. The security team will be following you at a distance the entire time. Not close enough to be obvious, but close enough to intervene if something goes wrong. Non-negotiable. I nodded. What else? You'll need clothes. Old clothes worn but not so filthy that you look like you've been living rough for months. We want believable, not dangerous. He slid a list across the desk. Thrift stores. I've mapped out 3 options. You really did your homework. Emma, if I'm going to help you potentially destroy your relationships with your children, I'm going to make damn sure you're safe while doing it. His voice softened. I still think this is a terrible idea. Noted? But I also understand why you need to do it. He pulled out another folder. I've prepared preliminary documentation showing Miller Textiles in severe financial distress. If anyone checks, and Alice probably will, she's thorough, they'll find concerning financial indicators. Nothing that would trigger legal issues, but enough to support your story. How long until you can make it look real? It's already done. As of this morning, your public financial profile shows significant losses. The private accounts, the real money that's all hidden in offshore structures that only you and I can access. I felt a chill run through me. This is really happening. Not yet. Not until you say the word. Robert leaned forward. Emma, I need you to think very carefully. Once you do this, you can't undo it. Even if Alice and Lucas pass your test with flying colors, they'll know you didn't trust them. That knowledge alone could poison your relationships forever. And if they fail? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I stood up and walked to the window. Below, the city moved in its usual rhythm. People going to work, making deals, building lives. Somewhere out there, Alice was probably in a meeting. Lucas was probably performing surgery. Hunter was probably teaching teenagers about literature. 3 children. 3 completely different lives. All built on foundations I'd provided. But what had I actually built? There's something else you should know, I said, still looking out the window. Something I've never told anyone, not even Jonathan. Robert waited. 40 years ago, my mother became homeless. She'd made bad decisions, burned through what little money my father left her. She called me asking for help. I was pregnant with Alice, just starting to build the business. Money was tight. The stress was overwhelming. My voice caught. I forced myself to continue. I told her I couldn't help her. I said I had my own family to think about, my own future to build. I told her there were shelters, government programs, that she'd be fine. The silence behind me was deafening. She died 6 months later, pneumonia, in a shelter that didn't have adequate heating. I didn't even go to the funeral. I told myself I was too busy, too stressed, that she'd brought it on herself. I turned to face Robert. His expression was unreadable. For 40 years I've carried that guilt. I've told myself that I'm different from her, that I built something lasting, that I took care of my family better than she took care of hers. But now, I gestured at the financial statements. Now I see Alice and Lucas, and I wonder if I taught them the same lesson I learned. That family is disposable when it becomes inconvenient. Robert's voice was gentle. Is that what this test is really about? Finding out if they're like you were? The question hung in the air like smoke. Maybe, I admitted. Maybe I need to know if I raised children who would do to me what I did to my mother. Maybe I need to know if Hunter, the son I secretly considered my failure, is actually the only one who learned what love really means. And if you're right, if Alice and Lucas fail and Hunter succeeds, Then I'll know that my biggest success and my biggest failure weren't what I thought they were at all. The roadside inn was exactly as depressing as I'd imagined. $49 a night, thin walls, a parking lot full of dented cars and one very suspicious RV. The smell of old cigarettes clung to everything despite the no smoking signs. I checked in under the name Mary Johnson paid cash and took the key to room 117. The room was small, a bed with a floral comforter that had seen better decades, a TV bolted to a dresser, a bathroom with cracked tiles and a rust stain in the tub. But it was clean enough and it was safe, and that's all I needed. I laid out my purchases from the thrift store on the bed. Gray sweatpants, $3.99. Faded blue hoodie with a mysterious stain, $2.99. Canvas shoes left soles separating, $4.99. A coat that smelled of mothballs and broken dreams, $7.99. Total investment in my disguise, $99.96. I looked at these clothes for a long time. This is what poverty looks like, I thought. This is what I wore once before Jonathan, before the business, before I climbed so high I forgot what the bottom looked like. I changed slowly, methodically. The sweatpants hung loosely on my frame. The hoodie was 2 sizes too big. The coat made me look shapeless, invisible. I washed my hair with the cheap motel shampoo, but didn't dry it properly. I didn't put on makeup. I let my face show every one of its 62 years. Then I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and looked at myself. The woman staring back was a stranger. Not the CEO, not the business titan, not Emma Miller, the woman who'd fought her way to the top of a male-dominated industry. Just a woman. Tired. Worn. Forgettable. I pulled out my phone, my real phone, not the burner Robert had given me, and made 3 calls. First Alice. It went to voicemail. "Hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to say I love you. Talk soon." Second Lucas. Also voicemail. "Hi, honey. Hope surgery went well today. Love you." Third Hunter. He answered on the second ring. "Mom, Hay was just thinking about you." His voice, warm, genuine concern, nearly broke me right there. "Hi, baby. Just wanted to check in. You sound tired. Everything okay?" "Just a long week. How are you? How's Grace?" "We're good. Grace just planted some early spring bulbs. She's convinced they'll survive the frost. I'm skeptical, but she usually proves me wrong." He laughed. "You should come over for dinner this weekend. Nothing fancy, just us. I'd like that." "Mom, are you sure you're okay? You sound, I don't know, sad." I looked at my reflection in the mirror, at the person I'd become for this test. "I'm fine, honey. Just tired. I love you." "Love you too, Mom. Get some rest." After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the motel bed and cried. Not quietly, not gracefully. I cried the way you cry when something breaks inside you that you didn't even know was fragile. 3 children. 3 phone calls. 2 went to voicemail. 1 asked if I was okay. I dried my tears and picked up the burner phone. Texted Robert, "Day 1 complete. Beginning day 2 tomorrow. 9 a.m., Alice's house." His response came immediately. "Team in position. Stay safe. There's still time to call this off." But there wasn't. Not really. Because some truths, once you start searching for them, become impossible to ignore. I lay down on that scratchy motel comforter and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Tomorrow I would discover what I'd spent 62 years building. Tomorrow I would knock on doors and see who answered. Tomorrow I would learn whether I was Emma Miller, beloved mother, or Emma Miller, convenient ATM, or Emma Miller, the woman who'd repeated her mother's abandonment 1 generation later. The room's heater clicked on, rattling and wheezing. Outside, someone's car alarm went off. A couple argued loudly in the room next door. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about my penthouse apartment with its memory foam mattress and its silence bought by thick walls and expensive insulation. This was just one night. 36 hours total. I could do this. I had to do this. Because the alternative, spending the rest of my life wondering, never knowing, always suspecting, was worse than any discomfort this test could bring. Sleep came eventually, restless and filled with dreams of doors closing, deadbolts sliding, and the sound of laughter on the other side. I arrived at Alice's neighborhood just as the sun was beginning to set. Golden Gates Gardens. The name alone told you everything you needed to know about the people who lived here. Each house was a monument to success, to having made it into the American dream, rendered in stone and steel and perfectly manicured lawns. Alice's house sat at the end of Prosperity Lane. I'd paid the down payment 7 years ago, $200,000 from my personal savings. At the time, I told myself it was an investment in her future. Now, walking up the stone path I'd helped design, I wondered if I'd just been buying her affection. The house gleamed in the evening light. All that expensive stone, those massive windows, that fountain in the front yard that cost more than most people's cars. I stood at the gate, suddenly terrified. What if I was wrong? What if Alice welcomed me in, took care of me, proved that my fears were unfounded? Or worse, what if I was right? I pressed the intercom button. Nothing. I pressed it again. Alice's voice came through, tinny and distracted. Yes. Who is it? It's me, sweetheart. It's Mom. A long pause. Too long. Mom. The confusion in her voice was real. She genuinely didn't recognize me. Why are you at the gate? Can you let me in? Please. Another pause. Then the buzz of the electronic gate unlocking just a few inches. I pushed through and walked up that stone path. Each step felt like walking toward an execution. Mine or our relationships, I wasn't sure which. The front door opened before I reached it. Alice appeared in the doorway, and I saw her face transform as she took in my appearance. Shock. Confusion. And then there it was, just for a second before she controlled it, disgust. Mom, what are you wearing? Why do you look like... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Can I come in? She didn't move, just stood there in her expensive athleisure wear, her perfect hair, her manicured nails blocking the entrance with her body. What's going on? Not with warmth, not with concern, with wariness. I lost everything. The words came out easier than I expected, maybe because part of me did feel lost. The company failed. Creditors took the house. I've been on the street for 3 days. I just need a place to stay. Just for tonight. Just until I figure out what to do. I watched her face carefully, looking for empathy, for horror, for the kind of immediate, instinctive reaction a daughter should have when her mother tells her she's been homeless. Instead, I saw her eyes dart to the neighboring houses. Mom, she said, lowering her voice. This isn't a good time. Thomas has an important dinner tonight. Partners from the firm. I can't deal with this right now. Deal with this? The words escaped before I could stop them. Alice, I'm your mother. I know that. Of course I know that. But you showing up here like this without warning, looking like... Again, she couldn't finish. Couldn't say the word. Homeless. The word she couldn't say was homeless. I didn't exactly plan this, I said, keeping my voice level. Bankruptcy doesn't send you a calendar invitation. How did the company fail? Now there was suspicion in her voice. You always said Miller Textiles was solid. You said the industry was stable. How does a $50 million company just collapse? So she had been paying attention. To the money. Always to the money. Bad decisions. Market changes. Does it matter? I took a step forward. I'm your mother, and I need help. She took a step back. That one backward step told me everything I'd come here to learn. There are shelters, she said. I can get you the addresses. Good ones, safe ones. They'll have resources, people who can help you navigate bankruptcy proceedings. And once you're back on your feet, once things are more stable, we can talk about Alice. I cut her off. Are you seriously telling your mother to go to a homeless shelter? I'm telling you that I'm not equipped to handle this right now. Her voice was getting harder. Defensive. Thomas's career is at a critical point. We're trying to have a baby. I have my own stress, my own problems. I can't just take on your crisis, too. Your crisis, as if my homelessness was a choice I'd made to inconvenience her. I changed your diapers, I said quietly. I sat up with you when you had nightmares. I paid for your education. $120,000 for business school. I gave you the down payment for this house. $200,000 from my savings. Her face hardened. Exactly, Mom. You gave and gave and gave. You made everything about how much you sacrificed, how much you did for us, how much we owed you. Well, guess what? I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask you to pay for anything. You chose that. And now you expect me to just, drop everything because you made bad business decisions. The cruelty in her words was breathtaking. I expect you to remember that I'm human, I said, that I'm your mother, that I'm standing here telling you I have nowhere to sleep tonight, and maybe, just maybe, that should matter more than Thomas's dinner party. She looked at me for a long moment. I saw her making calculations, weighing options, measuring costs and benefits. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I really am, but you can't stay here. It would be awkward for everyone." Awkward. I repeated the word like it was a foreign language I was trying to learn. "Yes, awkward. I'm sorry, but that's the truth." She started to close the door. "When you get things sorted out, call me. We'll have lunch. Talk everything through properly." "Alice, I have to go, Mom. Thomas will be home soon and I need to get ready." The door closed. Softly, deliberately, final. I stood there staring at the mahogany wood. Through the side window, I could see her walking back into her living room, picking up her phone, making a call. Within seconds, she was laughing. My daughter was laughing. I turned and walked back down that stone path, through the gate, into the street. Behind me, all the lights in Alice's house blazed warm and yellow. Every window glowed with comfort, with safety, with the life I'd helped build for her. And I was on the outside looking in. One door closed, one child lost, 2 to go. I walked. Not because I had a plan, not because I was brave. I walked because standing still on Alice's street, visible in her neighbor's sightlines, felt more unbearable than putting one foot in front of the other. 2 miles. That's what the GPS on my burner phone told me. 2 miles from Golden Gates Gardens to Lucas's neighborhood on the west side. My feet had already started bleeding. I could feel it, the wet warmth inside these terrible thrift store shoes, the way the separated sole rubbed against my heel with each step. Small pains, really. Nothing compared to the ache in my chest where my heart used to be. The temperature was dropping. February in this city meant nights that bit through cheap coats and found every gap in your defenses. I pulled the mothball-scented collar up around my neck and kept walking. Past the grocery store where I'd never shopped because it was too downscale. Past the check cashing place with its neon signs and bulletproof glass. Past the bus stop where a woman sat with 3 children and 2 garbage bags full of belongings. She looked at me. I looked at her. For a moment we recognized each other. 2 women who'd become invisible. 2 women the world had decided to stop seeing. "You need the bus schedule?" she asked. "No, thank you. I'm walking." She nodded. Didn't ask where, didn't offer advice, just went back to keeping her children warm. I kept walking. My phone buzzed. Robert checking in right on schedule. "Status," he texted. "1 down, heading to number 2. And I couldn't type it. Couldn't reduce what had just happened to text message abbreviations. "Call you later," I sent instead. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Robert was probably deciding whether to override my protocol and call anyway, but he didn't. He trusted me to know my limits. I wondered if that's what trust really was. Not blind faith, but knowing someone well enough to let them hurt without rushing in to stop it. The streets grew quieter as I left the commercial district. Houses appeared, but not mansions. These were the homes of doctors and lawyers and successful people who'd made it, but hadn't made it. Lucas's neighborhood. My middle child. My surgical prodigy. The son who'd looked at cadavers with steady hands but couldn't look at his homeless mother without flinching. Or could he? Maybe Alice was the outlier. Maybe Lucas would surprise me. I wanted to believe that. God, how I wanted to believe that. But I'd seen the bank statements. I'd counted the requests. I'd added up the years of taking and compared them to the moments of giving. The math didn't lie. My feet didn't either. Each step sent sharp pain through my heels. I was 62 years old, walking 2 miles in shoes held together by hope and duct tape testing. Whether the children I'd sacrificed everything for would offer me a place to sleep. What kind of mother does this? The kind who needs to know, I answered myself. The kind who can't die wondering if she mattered. Lucas's street appeared ahead. Modern houses, all glass and steel and sharp angles. The kind of architecture that said I am successful, and I have excellent taste, and I don't care about warmth. Number 47. His house. I stood across the street looking at it. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed his life like a museum exhibit. I could see into the living room. Minimalist furniture, abstract art, everything in shades of gray and white. Cold, clinical. Like him, I realized. My son had built a life that matched his profession. Sterile, controlled, no mess, no complications. And here I was, the ultimate complication. I crossed the street. climbed his 3 concrete steps, pressed the doorbell. This time, I didn't let myself hope. The door opened almost immediately. Lucas stood there in expensive casual wear designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, leather loafers that probably cost more than my entire outfit. His hair was perfectly styled. His face showed the remnants of his afternoon shave. He looked at me, and I watched his brain work through the recognition process. Confusion, then shock, then something that looked almost like fear. "Mom!" He said my name like a question, like he couldn't quite believe what his eyes were telling him. "Mom, what Jesus, what happened to you?" His eyes traveled from my greasy hair to my stained hoodie to my broken shoes. I saw genuine horror in his face. For a second, just a second, I thought maybe this would be different. "Can I come in?" My voice came out hoarse. I'd been walking for an hour in the cold. "Yes, God, yes, come in." He grabbed my arm and pulled me inside, then immediately looked past me to the street. Left then right, checking if anyone had seen. The same move Alice had made, the same fear of witnesses. He closed the door quickly, led me into the foyer. Not further, not into the living room where I could see his wife Jennifer reading on the couch. Just the foyer where visitors who weren't staying long got deposited. "What happened?" he repeated. "Where have you been? Why didn't you call?" I told him. The same story I'd told Alice. Bankruptcy, creditors, 3 days on the street, need for shelter. Lucas listened with his arms crossed. I recognized that posture. He used it with difficult patients' families. The stance that said, "I'm listening, but I'm also protecting myself from your emotions." When I finished, he didn't hug me, didn't rush to offer help. He just stood there processing. "How?" he finally asked. "How does a company like Miller Textiles just collapse? You had safeguards, diversification. You were always so careful, always back to the business, never to the person." "Bad decisions," I said. "Trusted the wrong people, made investments that failed. Does it matter how?" "Yes, it matters, because this doesn't make sense. You're not careless. You don't make these kinds of mistakes." His eyes narrowed. "Unless you're not telling me everything." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Are you suggesting I'm lying?" "I'm suggesting this seems very sudden, very dramatic, and I'm wondering if there's more to the story." He uncrossed his arms, but only to check his watch. "I have surgery at 6:30 tomorrow morning, a triple bypass. The patient is a senator. I need to be focused. I need to sleep." "Lucas," I said carefully, "I'm your mother. I'm telling you I have nowhere to go. I understand that, and I want to help, but I can't just—" He gestured vaguely at his house. "Jennifer and I have routines. We have a system. We can't just disrupt everything because—" He stopped, realizing what he was about to say. "Because what I pushed. Because your homeless mother is inconvenient." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" We stood there in his foyer. The house was silent except for the hum of expensive appliances and climate control. Through the doorway I could see Jennifer still reading, oblivious or pretending to be. Lucas's face did something strange. For just a moment his professional mask slipped and I saw something underneath. Not coldness, not cruelty, fear. He was afraid of me. "I can't," he said finally. The words seemed to cost him something. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't have you stay here. It's not possible." "Why not?" "Because—" He stopped, started again. 3 years ago I had a patient. Homeless man, heart attack. He came in too late, way too late. His heart was already too damaged. I tried everything, every procedure, every intervention. He died on my table." His voice had gone flat, clinical. "I'm sorry," I said, not understanding what this had to do with me. "His name was William. He was 58. He'd been on the streets for 6 years. Before that, he was an accountant, had a family. Lost his job, then his house, then his family. By the time he came to me, he looked like—" Lucas's eyes met mine. "He looked like you look right now." Understanding hit me like a physical blow. You can't look at me without seeing him. He didn't deny it. I tried to save him. I did everything right. But it was too late. Too much damage. And when he died, I had to call the shelter to tell them. Not family, not children. A shelter. They said they'd handle the arrangements. Put him in Potter's Field. Lucas, I see homeless people now, and I see him. I see that moment when his heart stopped and there was nothing I could do. I see the waste, the preventability, He shook his head. I can't have that in my house, Mom. I can't wake up every morning and see that reminder. There it was, the truth underneath the coldness. Not that he didn't care, but that he cared too much in the wrong way, and it had broken something in him. I'm not William, I said softly. I'm your mother. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But when I look at you right now in those clothes with that smell, he stopped hearing himself. I'm sorry. I know how that sounds. It sounds like you're choosing your trauma over your mother. His face hardened again, the clinical mask sliding back into place. Maybe I am. Maybe that makes me a terrible son. But I have to protect myself too, Mom. I have to be able to function, do my job, save the patients I can save. And I can't do that if your homeless mother is sleeping in your guest room. Yes, he said. Simple, honest, brutal. He pulled out his wallet, Italian leather, a gift from me 2 Christmases ago, $800. I can give you money, he said, extracting bills. Get a hotel room, somewhere decent, take a shower, buy some clothes. Then we can talk about next steps, figure out a plan. He held out the bills. $50. Less than he'd spent on lunch that day, probably. That's it. I stared at the money. $50. It's enough for a night. Maybe 2 if you're careful. Mom, I'm trying to help within my limitations. I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying I can't handle this right now. Can you understand that? Could I thought about William. About Lucas standing over a dying man doing everything right and having it not be enough. About how trauma marks us, changes us, makes us cruel in ways we don't even recognize. But I also thought about all the times I'd stood over Lucas's bed when he was sick. All the nights I'd sacrificed sleep to help him study. All the money I'd poured into his education so he could become the successful surgeon who now stood before me choosing his peace of mind over my survival. I understand, I said, and I did. That was the worst part. I understood exactly how people choose themselves over the people they love. I'd done it to my own mother. The cycle continues, I thought. Generation after generation, we abandon each other with good reasons. I took the $50, not because I needed it, because I wanted to see if handing it over would make him feel better, if buying me off would ease his conscience. It did. I saw the relief in his face. Thank you, he said. Thank you for understanding. Once you're cleaned up stable, we'll talk properly. I'll help you navigate the bankruptcy, connect you with resources, but right now I need you to go. He was already moving toward the door, already opening it, already ushering me back into the cold. Take care of yourself, Mom, he said, and please call before you come by again, so we can be prepared. The door closed, not slammed, not clicked, just closed with the soft sound of expensive hardware engineered to shut quietly. I stood on his concrete steps holding $50 and realized I'd just been paid to go away by my own son. 2 children, 2 rejections, 2 doors closed. I had 1 left. The pain in my feet had gone from sharp to dull. That worried me. Dull meant nerve damage, maybe. Or just that my body had run out of pain signals to send. I didn't care. I walked. Hunter's neighborhood was 4 miles from Lucas's. 4 miles through darkening streets, past closed shops and people who looked through me like I was glass. This was what invisibility felt like, I realized. Not magic, not fantasy, just being poor enough that the world decided you didn't matter. A man passed me and moved to the far side of the sidewalk. A woman clutched her purse tighter. A teenager looked at me, then quickly looked away like homelessness might be contagious. I am a human being, I wanted to shout. I am someone's mother. I built a $58 million company. I matter. But I didn't shout. I just walked. My phone buzzed. Robert again. Emma, the team says you've been walking for 90 minutes. Please confirm you're okay. I'm fine. 1 more stop. It's getting dark. The temperature is dropping. We should extract you now. No, I need to finish this. Emma. Robert, I closed my mother out of my life 40 years ago and she died alone. I need to know if my children are going to do the same to me. I need to complete this. Long pause. Then, the team will maintain distance, but if you're not at a safe location in 2 hours, I'm overriding your decision. Agreed. I kept walking. Hunter's neighborhood was different. Not mansions, not modern architectural statements, just houses. Normal houses where normal people lived normal lives. Teachers, nurses, social workers, people who'd chosen professions that mattered more than they paid. People like Hunter, my youngest son, the one I'd secretly been disappointed in, the one who'd chosen passion over profit, meaning over money, love over ambition, the failure, except maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was the only one who'd succeeded at being human. I found his street just as full darkness fell. The houses glowed with warm light. I could see families through windows, dinner tables, people talking, lives being lived without pretense or performance. Number 17, a small one-story house, cream-colored paint peeling in places, a wooden fence that needed repair, a garden that someone Grace probably tended with love instead of landscapers. It was humble. It was modest. It was honest. I stood at the gate, and for the first time since leaving Alice's house, I let myself feel hope. Not because I thought Hunter would save me, but because I thought he might see me. Really see me. Not as a problem or a trauma or a complication, but as a person. As his mother. That's all I wanted anymore. Not rescue, just recognition. I walked up the cracked concrete path, stood at the wooden door, pressed the simple doorbell. Inside I heard footsteps. The door opened. Grace Miller was 30 years old and looked every year of it in the best possible way. No Botox, no fillers, no expensive anti-aging treatments. Just a face that showed she'd lived, laughed, cried, worked in the sun, and didn't apologize for any of it. She wore an olive green sweater that looked hand-knitted. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her hands resting on the doorframe were calloused from garden work. She wore no jewelry except her wedding ring, a simple silver band that had probably cost less than $100. I'd always thought she wasn't enough for Hunter. Not sophisticated enough. Not ambitious enough. Not from the right background. Now looking at her, I saw what I'd missed. She was real, and in a family of people performing success that made her revolutionary. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. Emma. She said my first name as she always did. Not Mom, not Mrs. Miller, just Emma, like we were equals. It used to annoy me. Now I understood it was the kindest thing she could have done. Grace, my voice cracked. I'm sorry to show up like this. I didn't know where else. She didn't let me finish. She reached out, took my arm, and pulled me inside. Hunter, she called into the house. Your mom is here. She closed the door behind me. The warmth of the house hit me like a physical embrace. It smelled like home. Not expensive candles or diffusers, but real smells. Cooking. Bread. Living. What happened to you? Grace's hands were on my face, gentle but checking, looking for injuries. Are you hurt? Did someone hurt you? The concern in her voice undid me. After 2 rejections, this simple question, are you hurt, broke through every defense I had. I'm okay, I managed. You're not okay. You're freezing, and you smell like... She stopped too kind to say it. Like I've been sleeping rough. I know. Hunter appeared from what looked like the kitchen. He was wearing a faded gray t-shirt and old jeans, teacher clothes, grading papers on Sunday clothes, real-life clothes. When he saw me, his face went through every emotion at once. Mom? He ran toward me. Actually ran. Mom, oh my God, what happened? His arms went around me, and I felt something I hadn't felt at Alice's or Lucas's house. Safety. Are you okay? He pulled back, hands on my shoulders, eyes scanning my face. Did someone hurt you? Where have you been? Not why are you here? Not what do you want? Just are you okay? I lost everything, I said. The lie came easier the 3rd time, but it also hurt more. Because unlike my other children, Hunter didn't deserve to be lied to. The company collapsed. They took the house. I've been on the street. I didn't know where else to go. Hunter's eyes filled with tears. Actual tears. You came here, he said. Of course you came here. This is your home. You're staying here. Hunter, you don't have room. You only have 1 bedroom. We'll make room, he said firmly. We're not discussing this, Mom. Your family. Grace had already disappeared into the house. I could hear water running, doors opening. I heated water for a bath, she called from somewhere. We don't have a tub, just a shower, but it's hot. There are clean towels in the bathroom. Hunter guided me toward the hallway. Come on, let's get you warm. I looked around the house as we walked. It was small. So small. The living room and kitchen were basically the same space. I could see all of it from where I stood, the worn brown couch with a patch on one arm, the small dining table barely big enough for two, the tiny kitchen with its outdated appliances. This was what my son lived in. This was what he'd chosen, or what his choices had left him with, and he was offering it to me without hesitation. "The bedroom," Hunter said, opening a door. "It's yours. Grace and I will sleep on the couch." "No, absolutely not. I'll take the couch." Grace reappeared with an armful of clothes. "Linda, please. We're not arguing about this. You take the bed. We're younger. We can handle the couch for a few nights." A few nights. She'd said a few nights, like my staying was already decided, like there was never any question. "I can't ask you to do this," I said. Grace stepped closer. Her brown eyes looked at me with something I couldn't quite name. Not pity, something deeper. "You're not asking," she said quietly. "We're offering. There's a difference." She handed me the clothed, soft gray sweatpants and a light brown sweatshirt. "They'll be a little big. I'm taller than you, but they're clean and warm." I took the clothes. They smelled like cheap detergent and something else. Care. They smelled like care. "The bathroom is through there," Hunter said, pointing. "Take your time. Get warm. We'll have food ready when you're done." I stood there holding Grace's clothes, looking at my youngest son and his wife, and I felt something crack inside my chest. These two people who barely had anything were giving me everything, and I'd looked down on them for years. The shower was small and the water pressure was weak, but the water was hot, and that was all that mattered. I stood under the stream and let it wash away 3 days of dirt sweat and the accumulated grime of testing my children's love. The bathroom was tiny, chipped tiles, a patched shower curtain, cheap shampoo and bargain store soap, everything Alice and Lucas would have looked at with disdain, everything that felt like luxury to me in that moment. I washed my hair twice, scrubbed my skin until it was pink, let the hot water run over the blisters on my feet until the pain faded to a manageable ache. When I finally stepped out and dried myself with the thin towel Grace had left, I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't Emma Miller, CEO, wasn't the textile titan or the business legend or the woman who defied expectations. She was just Emma, 62 years old, tired, scared, grateful, human. I put on Grace's clothes. The sweatpants pooled around my ankles. The sweatshirt hung loose on my frame, but they were soft and clean and given with love. When I emerged from the bathroom, I heard voices in the kitchen. Low, urgent. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. "Babe, we don't have enough money for this." Hunter's voice worried. "I know." Grace, calm. "The rent is due in 2 weeks. We're already stretched thin." "I know." A pause, then, "We could sell the rings." My heart stopped. "The rings?" Hunter's voice rose slightly. "Hunter, they're just metal, just symbols. Our marriage doesn't depend on 2 pieces of silver. But they mean something to you. They mean we love each other, and we'll still love each other without them. Your mom needs help. That's more important than symbols." I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. These two people I'd judged dismissed, found insufficient, were discussing selling their wedding rings to feed me. Their wedding rings, the only pieces of jewelry they owned. "Tomorrow I'll take them to the pawn shop," Grace continued. "They'll probably give us $300, maybe $350 if we're lucky. That'll cover groceries for the month and get your mom some decent clothes." $300. That's what their rings were worth. Alice had $5,000 in her ears. Lucas carried $800 in his wallet. And Grace and Hunter were willing to sell their wedding rings for $300 to help me. "I love you," Hunter said. His voice was breaking. "I love you too. This is what family does. We take care of each other." "But what if she stays for months? What if—" "Then we figure it out. Hunter, your mom raised you. She educated you. She gave you everything she had. Now it's our turn. That's how real families work." I couldn't listen anymore. I moved away from the kitchen, sat on the edge of their couch, the couch they'd be sleeping on tonight because of me, and let the tears come. Silent tears, the kind that hurt your chest. Alice had diamonds and mansions and closed doors. Lucas had success and trauma and $50. Hunter had nothing except everything that mattered. And I'd been disappointed in him. I heard them finishing up in the kitchen. quickly wiped my face, tried to compose myself. Grace came out first. She saw my face and knew immediately. "You heard," she said. Not a question. I nodded. She sat down next to me on the couch. "It's okay. We want to do this." "Grace," my voice failed. "Emma, listen to me." She took my hand. Her calloused gardener's hand holding my soft, privileged hand. "Hunter told me stories about his childhood, about how you worked yourself to exhaustion for your kids, how you sacrificed everything. That wasn't a performance. That was love, and love deserves love in return. You don't have to. We want to. That's the difference." Hunter appeared with a tray, 3 bowls of soup, simple vegetable soup probably made from whatever they had in the pantry, slices of homemade bread, tap water in mismatched glasses. It looked like a feast. We sat together at their tiny table, Hunter and Grace on one side, me on the other. And for the first time in days, maybe years, I felt like I was actually at a family dinner. "How did this happen, Mom?" Hunter asked gently. The company was so solid. I fed him the same story. Bankruptcy, bad decisions, lost everything. He listened without judgment, without suspicion, just with sadness that his mother was hurting. "We'll figure it out," he said when I finished. "You're not alone. You have us." Grace nodded. "Whatever you need." The soup was simple but good. The bread was slightly burnt but made with care. The water was just water. But it tasted better than any meal I'd had in Alice's mansion or Lucas's modern house. Because it was offered with love instead of obligation. Because they gave from poverty instead of holding back from plenty. Because they saw me as a person, not a problem. After dinner, Grace showed me to the bedroom. It was small, maybe 10 by 10. The bed took up most of it. There was an old dresser, a closet, and a nightstand with a wedding photo. Hunter and Grace on their wedding day. Hunter in a borrowed suit. Grace in a simple white dress, both smiling with pure, uncomplicated joy. "That was the best day of my life," Grace said, seeing me look at it. "I should have been happier for you," I admitted. "I wanted more for Hunter. Someone with money. Status. I'm sorry." Grace sat on the bed beside me. "I knew. I always knew. But I also knew Hunter loved me, and that was enough. It should have been enough for me, too. Maybe this is your chance to learn that," she said softly. "Maybe that's what this whole situation is teaching you. What really matters." She had no idea how right she was. I lay in Hunter and Grace's bed, unable to sleep. The sheets were old but clean. The mattress was lumpy but comfortable. The room was cold because they kept the heat low to save money, but there were enough blankets piled on top of me. This bed, this humble, simple bed, was the only luxury these two possessed, and they'd given it to me. I stared at the ceiling where I could see water stains and cracks in the plaster. This wasn't a penthouse. This wasn't luxury. This wasn't success as I'd defined it. But it was love. Pure, uncomplicating, sacrificial love. Around midnight, I heard movement in the living room. Whispered voices. I got up as quietly as I could and cracked the bedroom door. Hunter and Grace were trying to settle on the couch. It was too small for both of them. Hunter's legs hung off one end. Grace was curled against him at an uncomfortable angle. "Sorry," Hunter whispered. "This is awful." "It's fine," Grace replied. "Just think about your mom sleeping warm and safe. That's worth any discomfort." They adjusted positions, tried again, failed again. "I'm sorry I can't give you more," Hunter said. His voice was heavy with something more than physical discomfort. "You deserve a big house, nice things, an easier life." Grace's response destroyed me. "Hunter, I have exactly what I want. I have you. We have health. We have jobs that matter. We have a roof. And now we can help someone who needs us. That isn't little. That's everything." That's everything. 3 words that contained more wisdom than all the business degrees and medical training and financial consulting in the world. Grace understood something my other children had forgotten, that wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the capacity to give when you have nothing. I closed the door carefully and crawled back into their bed. And this time I didn't just cry. I sobbed. Deep, wrenching sobs into their pillow so they wouldn't hear. I cried for the years wasted valuing the wrong things. I cried for judging Grace so harshly. I cried for being disappointed in Hunter when he was actually the only success story. I cried for Alice and Lucas, who I'd accidentally taught to value money over humanity. I cried for my mother, who died alone because I was too busy building an empire to give her shelter. But I also cried with relief, because in the middle of this painful test, I'd found something I thought was extinct, genuine goodness. Not performed goodness, not strategic goodness, not goodness that calculated cost-benefit ratios. Just goodness. Simple, honest, beautiful goodness. Hunter and Grace didn't know who I really was, didn't know about the $58 million hidden in offshore accounts, didn't know this was a test. They just knew I needed help, and they gave it. That's everything Grace had said. She was right. I fell asleep in their bed, wrapped in their blankets, protected by their sacrifice, and for the first time in 3 days, maybe in 3 decades, I felt safe. Not because I had money or power or control, but because someone had looked at me at my lowest and decided I was worth their highest sacrifice. That's what love looks like, I realized. Not diamonds or down payments or prestigious degrees. Just 2 people on an uncomfortable couch willing to be uncomfortable so someone else could rest. That's everything. I woke to the smell of cheap coffee and something baking. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered Hunter and Grace's bedroom. Their bed. Their sacrifice. I got up slowly. My feet still hurt, but less than yesterday. I was wearing Grace's borrowed sweatpants and sweatshirt. I hadn't felt this humble in 40 years. It felt right. I found Grace in the kitchen making toast. She was wearing the same olive sweater as yesterday, probably one of only 2 or 3 she owned for winter. "Good morning," she said, smiling when she saw me. "I hope you slept well." "I did. Thank you. Where's Hunter?" "Left for school about an hour ago. He has to get there early to prepare his classroom." She poured me coffee in a chipped mug. "There's sugar if you want. We're out of cream, sorry." "Black is fine." We sat together at the small table, the same table where we'd eaten last night. Grace looked at me over her cup, and I saw something in her eyes. She knew. "Emma," she said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you really lose everything?" My heart started pounding. "I told you. The company—" "A woman like you doesn't just lose a company overnight." Grace's voice was gentle but firm. "Someone with your experience, your intelligence. The details don't add up." I stared at her. This woman everyone underestimated. This woman with no college degree and calloused hands. She'd seen through me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I think this might be a test. I think maybe you wanted to see how we'd react." The words hung in the air like smoke. I could deny it. I could lie. I could maintain the fiction. Or I could tell the truth to the one person who'd earned it. "You knew," I said finally. "How long have you known?" "I suspected from the moment I opened the door. Your posture was wrong. Your speech patterns too refined. Small details that didn't fit." She took a sip of coffee. "But I decided it didn't matter." "It didn't matter." "No, because even if this was a test, the right answer was still to help you. The right answer was still to open our door, to share what we have, to treat you with dignity and love." I felt tears starting again. "Grace, I know I was never enough for you," she said, her voice steady despite the pain in it. "I know you wanted more for Hunter, someone with money, education, connections. I'm just a girl who used to work in a factory, who tends gardens now, who doesn't have much to offer except love." "You're wrong," I said. "You have everything to offer, everything that matters." And I was too blind to see it. She studied me for a long moment. "So it was a test." I nodded. I needed to know who loved me as a person and who just saw me as a bank account. I went to Alice first. She closed her door. "Lucas gave me $50 and sent me away. You and Hunter—" My voice broke. "You gave me everything." Grace was quiet. Not angry, not hurt, just thinking. "Did we pass?" she finally asked. "With flying colors. But I'm the one who failed. For years I failed to see what was right in front of me. The only child who understood what family really means. The only daughter-in-law who lived out genuine love instead of just talking about it." "Emma, Please let me finish." I took her hands across the table, those rough, honest working hands. "Last night I heard you and Hunter talking about selling your wedding rings. For me. For a woman who'd looked down on you for years. And I realized something." "What?" "That you're the richest person I know. Not in money. in character, in humanity, in all the things I thought didn't matter but are actually the only things that do. Grace's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to say that. Yes, I do, because it's true, and because I'm ashamed it took me 62 years and a cruel test to learn it. We sat there crying together, holding hands across a table in a kitchen that cost less than Alice's chandelier, and I felt something shift inside me. Maybe this test wasn't about my children at all. Maybe it was about me, about seeing clearly for the first time what I'd built and what I'd destroyed in the process of building it. Hunter came home for lunch. A teacher's schedule meant he had a gap in the middle of the day. He found Grace and me still at the kitchen table, tissues everywhere, red eyes, but something different in the air. What's going on? He looked between us, worried. Is everything okay? Sit down, honey, Grace said. Your mom has something to tell us. I took a deep breath. The moment of truth, literally. Hunter, I wasn't entirely honest with you about why I came here. He sat down slowly. What do you mean? I'm not bankrupt. I didn't lose everything. The company is fine, better than fine. I'm still worth $58 million. The silence was absolute. What to? Hunter's voice was barely a whisper. This was a test. I wanted to see how my children would react if I had nothing, if I couldn't give them money anymore, if I was just a person who needed help. Hunter stood up. His face cycled through emotions too fast to track. A test. You tested us. Yes. You lied to us, made us worry, made Grace. He looked at his wife. Grace, did you know? I suspected, she said quietly. But I didn't know for sure until this morning. Hunter looked back at me. Alice and Lucas. You went to them first. Yes. And Alice closed her door, told me to find a shelter, said it would be awkward for me to stay because Thomas had an important dinner. The words hurt even more the second time. Lucas gave me $50 and pushed me out, said I was a distraction from his surgery schedule. Hunter's face went pale. They didn't let me in. Either of them. You and Grace were the only ones who opened your door. He sat back down hard, like his legs had given out. I don't know what to say, Mom. I'm hurt that you lied. I'm sad about Alice and Lucas. He paused. I'm angry. At them. At you. At this whole situation. You have every right to be. But I'm also, he looked at Grace, I'm glad we did the right thing, even if it was a test, even if you were watching and judging. We did the right thing. Grace nodded. That's what I told her. The test doesn't change our actions. We still opened the door. We still offered everything we had. You were going to sell your wedding rings, I said. I heard you last night. You were going to sell your rings for me. Hunter's hand went to his finger, touching the silver band. We still would. Test or no test. If you really needed help, we'd do it. I know you would. That's what makes this so painful. I created children who see me as a bank account, and one child who sees me as a person. And I was disappointed in the one who got it right. The truth of that statement hung in the air. Why? Hunter asked. Why were you disappointed in me? Because I measured success wrong. I thought it was about money and status and impressive careers. I thought you settling for teaching for Grace for this modest life meant you'd failed somehow. I looked around their small kitchen. I was wrong. This isn't settling. This is succeeding at what actually matters. Hunter's eyes filled with tears. Do you mean that? Yes, with everything in me. You're the only one of my children who understood that people matter more than possessions. That love is measured in sacrifice, not salary. That family means opening doors instead of closing them. Grace reached over and took Hunter's hand. They sat there, fingers intertwined, united. What happens now? Hunter asked. With Alice and Lucas? I don't know, I admitted. That's the part I haven't figured out yet. Are you going to tell them you were testing them? Yes. My lawyer is coming this morning. We're going to confront them. Here. Hunter looked around their small house. If that's okay with you. He and Grace exchanged a look. Some wordless conversation that long-married couples have. Yes, Grace said. Let them come here. Let them see how we live. Let them see what we were willing to give up. Maybe that will mean something. Or maybe it won't, Hunter added. Maybe they're too far gone, but at least they'll know the truth. I nodded. There's something else. Something I need to tell you. Something I've never told anyone." They waited. 40 years ago, my mother became homeless, and I turned her away, just like Alice and Lucas turned me away. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Hunter and Grace stared at me, waiting for me to continue, waiting for me to explain how I could judge my children for doing exactly what I'd done. "I was pregnant with Alice," I began. "Your father and I were just starting to build the business. Money was desperately tight. We were living in a one-bedroom apartment eating ramen most nights, every dollar going back into the company." I could still see that apartment. The peeling wallpaper, the radiator that barely worked, the dreams we had that felt simultaneously impossible and inevitable. My mother called. She'd burned through the money my father left her, made bad investments, trusted the wrong people. She'd lost her house. She was staying with friends, but that was running out. She needed help. Grace's hand found mine across the table. I held on to it like an anchor. She asked if she could stay with us. Just for a few months, she said. Just until she got back on her feet. And my voice cracked. I said no. Hunter leaned forward. "Mom, I told her we didn't have room, that the stress would be bad for my pregnancy, that there were government programs, shelters, resources. I sent her a list of addresses." I laughed bitterly. "Just like Alice told me about shelters. The cycle repeats itself perfectly." "What happened to her?" Grace asked softly. "She went to a shelter. One of the ones on my list, actually. It was winter. The heating system was inadequate. She developed pneumonia. By the time they got her to a hospital, it was too late. She died 6 days later." Tears streamed down my face. After 40 years, the guilt was as fresh as the day I got the call. I didn't go to the funeral. I told myself I was too pregnant, too stressed, that it would be bad for the baby. But the truth is, I was ashamed. Ashamed of her for losing everything. Ashamed of myself for turning her away. Ashamed that anyone would know my mother had died in a homeless shelter. Hunter was crying too now. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Do you see the pattern?" I looked at him. "I did to my mother what Alice and Lucas did to me. And I taught them through my actions, through my values, that money matters more than people, that success means never being vulnerable, that family is only valuable when it's convenient. But you also taught me something different," Hunter said. "You taught me to work hard, to care about others, to... I didn't teach you that. You learned it despite me. You chose a different path. You chose grace, chose teaching, chose a life of meaning over a life of accumulation. And I was disappointed because I didn't understand what you'd figured out." Grace spoke up. "Emma, we all make mistakes. We all fail the people we love sometimes. The question is what we do after we realize it." "That's why I did this test," I said. "Not just to judge my children, but to see if I'd raised anyone different from who I was, to see if the cycle could be broken." "And," Hunter asked, "you broke it. You and Grace. You proved that love can exist without conditions, that sacrifice can be genuine, that family can mean something real instead of transactional." I pulled out my phone. "My lawyer is coming at 10. Alice and Lucas will be here shortly after. When they arrive, when they see the truth, it's going to be ugly. There will be anger, hurt, accusations. Are you sure you want to be here for that?" Hunter looked at Grace. She nodded. "We're sure," he said. "They're still family. We don't abandon family even when they abandon us." The grace in that statement, the sheer impossible grace of it, made me realize something. I'd spent 40 years building a business empire to compensate for my guilt about my mother. I'd poured money into my children to prove I was different from her. But I'd never dealt with the fundamental question, had I become her, or had I become worse? She'd lost her money through bad choices, but at least she'd asked for help. At least she'd been vulnerable enough to need people. I'd kept my money and my power and my pride. I'd never let anyone see me need anything. And in doing so, I'd taught my children that needing people was weakness. Except Hunter had somehow learned the opposite, that needing people and being needed was the whole point. That vulnerability wasn't weakness, but humanity. 10 minutes, Grace said, checking the clock. "Your lawyer will be here in 10 minutes. Do you want more coffee?" Such a simple question, such a profound act of care. Yes, I said. Please. She poured 3 cups. We sat together at that small table in that modest kitchen, and I realized something. This was the richest I'd ever been. Not in the penthouse, not in the boardroom, not signing million-dollar contracts. Here, in this moment, drinking cheap coffee with 2 people who'd proven that love was real. Outside, I heard a car pull up. Robert right on time. The final act was about to begin. The confrontation, the revelation, the reckoning. Alice and Lucas were about to discover what they'd done and what they'd lost in doing it. But more than that, they were about to discover what Hunter and Grace had found. The thing money can't buy and success can't fake. Humanity. Robert arrived first, as always punctual to the minute. He looked different than he had in my office, less polished, more human. He was wearing a simple gray suit instead of his usual bespoke attire. When Grace opened the door, he took in the modest house without judgment, just quiet observation. "Emma," he said, seeing me at the kitchen table in borrowed clothes, "how are you holding up?" "I've been better. I've been worse." I stood. "Robert Hayes, this is Grace and Hunter Miller, my son and daughter-in-law." "The ones who passed," Robert said, shaking their hands. "It's an honor." "We just did what anyone should do," Hunter said quietly. "Except that's not what anyone does," Robert replied. "That's the whole point of this exercise." He set his briefcase on the small dining table and opened it. Documents spilled out. Financial statements, bank records, the evidence of my wealth, the proof of my deception. "They'll be here in 15 minutes, he said, checking his watch. "I called them at 9. Told them there was urgent news about your situation. Both confirmed they'd come." "How did they sound?" I couldn't help asking. Alice sounded annoyed. Lucas sounded worried. Robert paused. "Emma, are you absolutely certain you want to do this? There's still time to—" "I'm certain." Grace brought Robert coffee. He accepted it with genuine gratitude, and I noticed him notice the chipped mug, the cheap coffee, the humble offering given without shame. "You have a lovely home," he told them. "It's small," Grace said, "but it's ours." "The best things usually are," Robert replied. We waited. The clock on the wall, a simple plastic thing that probably cost $10, ticked loudly in the silence. Each minute felt like an hour. At exactly 10:15, we heard cars outside, 2 of them arriving simultaneously. Hunter went to the window. "They're here, both of them." Through the glass, I could see Alice getting out of her white Mercedes, Lucas emerging from his BMW. They met on the sidewalk, looking at Hunter's house with barely concealed disdain. I could read their body language even from here. The way Alice's nose wrinkled. The way Lucas checked his surroundings, making sure none of his colleagues saw him in this neighborhood. They walked up the path together, united in their judgment, united in their superiority, united in having no idea what was about to happen. Hunter opened the door before they could knock. "What are you doing here?" Alice's first words to her brother. Not hello, not how are you, just accusation. "I live here," Hunter said evenly. "This is my house." "We were told there was urgent news about Mom." Lucas looked past Hunter into the house. "The lawyer called, said we needed to come immediately." "Come in," Hunter said, stepping aside. They entered slowly, their eyes scanning everything. The worn furniture, the patched couch, the tiny kitchen. I watched their faces catalog each piece of evidence of Hunter's failure. Then they saw me. I was still wearing Grace's borrowed clothes, still looking like someone who'd spent days on the street, still appearing to be everything I'd claimed to be. "Mom," Alice's voice rose. "You're here. How long have you been here?" 3 days, I said quietly, "since you closed your door on me." The air in the room changed. Alice's face flushed. "I didn't close my—" she started, but Lucas interrupted. "What's going on? Why are we all here?" Robert spotted the documents on the table. "What is this?" Robert stood. "Alice Miller Parker, Lucas Miller. I'm Robert Hayes, your mother's attorney. We're here to discuss her financial situation." "Finally," Alice said. "Some answers. Mom, I've been trying to reach you. Your phone goes straight to voicemail. The company website is down. No one at the office will talk to me." She looked at me accusingly. "You disappeared." "I didn't disappear. I came to you. You sent me away." "That's not—" Alice stopped, recalibrated. "Mom, you showed up at my house looking like a homeless person. You can't expect me to just what? Grace's voice cut through, quiet but sharp. To just help your mother, to just offer her shelter. Alice turned to Grace like she'd just noticed her. This is none of your business. It became my business when Emma showed up at our door and we let her in, while you were worried about Thomas's dinner party. You don't understand the complexity of— I understand perfectly, Grace interrupted. You were ashamed. Of her. Of being associated with poverty. So you closed your door. Lucas stepped forward. Look, this isn't fair. None of us knew the full situation. We didn't have all the information. You had enough information, Hunter said. His voice was shaking. You had Mom standing at your door telling you she had nowhere to sleep. What other information did you need? This is easy for you to judge, Lucas shot back. You live in this tiny house with nothing to lose. I have a career, a reputation. And I gave you $50. My voice silenced them all. You gave me $50 and told me I was a distraction. Lucas's face went pale. Mom, I explained about William, about the patient. You know I have trauma around. I know you chose your trauma over your mother. The words landed like physical blows. Alice found her voice. This is manipulative. You're guilt-tripping us for having boundaries, for having our own lives. Boundaries? I stood up. Alice, I wasn't asking you to change your life. I was asking for a place to sleep for one night. And I offered you resources. I told you about shelters, about programs. You told your mother to go to a homeless shelter while you slept in your 6-bedroom house that I helped pay for. The volume in the room was rising. Years of unspoken resentments were surfacing. Robert cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the facts. He opened a folder. The reason I called you both here is to discuss your mother's actual financial situation. Finally, Alice said, how bad is it? What kind of bankruptcy proceedings are we looking at? Robert pulled out documents and spread them across the table. Bank statements, company reports, investment portfolios. Your mother's company is not bankrupt, he said calmly. Miller Textiles is operating at record profits. Her personal net worth is approximately $58 million. None of it has been lost. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Alice picked up one of the statements. Her hands were shaking. This was a test, Robert continued. Your mother wanted to see how you would respond if she had nothing, if she couldn't give you money anymore, if she was just a person who needed help. Lucas sat down hard in one of the chairs. This was all fake. The homelessness was fake, I said. Your reactions were real. Alice's face transformed. Shock gave way to understanding, which gave way to fury. You set us up. You set a trap for us. I gave you a choice, I corrected. A choice Hunter and Grace passed without hesitation. Because they have nothing. Alice's voice was shrill now. It's easy to be generous when you're already at the bottom. We have things to protect, things to maintain. Things I gave you, I said quietly. Things I spent my life building for you. And when I needed you, you protected those things instead of protecting me. Lucas had his head in his hands. This isn't fair. You tricked us. We didn't know. Exactly, Hunter interrupted. You didn't know it was a test, so your reactions were genuine. You really did close your doors on Mom. The test didn't create your choices. It just revealed them. Alice turned on him. Don't you dare judge us. You've never had anything. You've never built anything. You don't know what it's like to have something to lose. You're right, Hunter said. I don't have much, but I have something you don't. I have Mom, because I opened my door. The truth of that statement hung in the air. Alice's anger suddenly collapsed into something else. She sat down and I saw tears forming. Why? She asked, her voice breaking. Why did you need to test us? Because I needed to know, I said. I needed to know if I'd raise children who loved me or children who loved my money. That's cruel, Lucas said. To make us choose like that, to put us in that position. It's cruel. My voice rose despite myself. Do you want to know what's cruel? I did this to my mother. 40 years ago, my mother lost everything and came to me for help, and I said no. I sent her to a shelter. She died there 6 months later. Both of them froze. I've carried that guilt for 40 years, and when I saw you, Alice, looking at me with disgust, calculating whether helping me was worth the social cost, I saw myself. I saw what I did to my mother, the cycle repeating itself perfectly. Alice was crying now. I didn't know. You never told us about her. Because I was ashamed, just like you were ashamed of me standing at your door. Grace stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. I want to say something, she began. Alice Lucas, you've never liked me. You've made that clear at every family gathering. You've looked at me like I'm not good enough for Hunter, like I'm holding him back from something better. Neither of them denied it. But when your mother came to our door dirty and desperate, we didn't hesitate. Not because we're better people, but because we understand something you've forgotten. What's that? Alice asked, her voice bitter. That people aren't valuable because of what they have. They're valuable because they're people. Your mother standing at my door was still your mother. Still Hunter's mother. Still a human being who needed help. Her net worth didn't change that. Hunter moved to stand beside Grace. You two have treated me like a failure for years. Every family dinner, every holiday, you made it clear you thought I'd wasted my potential, that Grace wasn't enough, that our life wasn't enough. Hunter, that's not... Lucas started. Yes, it was, Hunter said firmly, but I'm not angry about that anymore. I'm sad, because you missed the whole point of life. You measured success in dollars and forgot to measure it in moments, in people, in love. We love Mom, Alice protested. Do you? Grace asked gently. Or do you love what she provides, because when she couldn't provide anymore, you closed your doors? That's not fair, Alice said again. We didn't know it was her. She looked homeless, Grace finished. She looked homeless, and that made her not worth helping. The question hung unanswered. Robert spoke up. If I may, I'd like to share something. He pulled out another document. These are Emma's financial records for the past 10 years. The allowances, the bailouts, the temporary loans that were never repaid. He slid the papers across to Alice and Lucas. Alice, you've received $847,000. Lucas, $623,000. Hunter, $0. He never asked for a dime. Robert paused. Now Emma could argue that she was owed help in return for that financial support. But she's not, because that's not how love works. Then what is this? Lucas demanded. What's the point of telling us all this if not to make us feel guilty? The point, I said, is consequences. I stood and faced my children, all 3 of them. I asked Robert to prepare documents disinheriting both of you, to leave everything to Hunter and Grace. Alice's face went white. Lucas stood up, hands clenched. But I'm not going to do that, I continued. Both of them exhaled. Not because you don't deserve it, but because Hunter and Grace asked me not to. They argued for mercy, for a second chance, for the possibility that you might change. I pulled out a different set of documents. Here's what's going to happen instead. I'm dividing my estate into 3 parts, effective immediately. Hunter gets 50%. Alice and Lucas, you each get 25%. That's not equal, Alice said immediately. No, it's not. It's fair. Fair and equal aren't the same thing. I looked at her. But here's the condition. You keep your 25% if and only if you meet the following requirements over the next 3 years. Robert pulled out a formal agreement. Family therapy, every week for 2 years, both of you together and separately. That's Lucas started. 100 hours of volunteer work at homeless shelters, Robert continued. Not writing checks, actually showing up, serving meals, hearing stories, seeing the faces of people like the one you thought your mother was. And third, I added real apologies, not to me, to Hunter and Grace, for years of condescension, for years of making them feel less than. Real genuine apologies backed up by changed behavior. If either of you fails any of these requirements, Robert said, your share goes to Hunter. You're accountable to each other now. You'll have to work together to heal. Alice looked at Lucas. Lucas looked at Alice. For the first time, I saw them as allies instead of competitors. Why are you doing this? Alice asked. Why give us another chance? Because someone I loved very much once told me that forgiveness is a path, not an event, that people can change, that grace isn't earned, it's offered. I looked at Grace. She taught me that in 3 days. Maybe you can learn it in 3 years. Lucas spoke first. What if we refuse? What if we don't want therapy or volunteer work or any of it? Then you get nothing, I said simply, and we go our separate ways. That's blackmail, Alice said. No, that's a choice. You're free to walk away. But if you want a relationship with me, and if you want your inheritance, you'll do the work. A relationship. Lucas's voice was sharp. Is that what this is about? Or is it about control, about making us dance to your tune? It's about seeing if you're capable of change, I replied. I changed. For 40 years, I was you. I prioritized wealth over people. I turned away someone I loved because it was inconvenient. And it destroyed me. I don't want that for you. Alice was still crying, but differently now. Not angry tears, something deeper. I saw you collapse once, she said suddenly. I was 8. You were working so hard, sleeping so little. You just fell, passed out right in the kitchen. Dad had to call an ambulance, I remembered. The month we almost lost the company, the time I worked a 100-hour week. I was so scared, Alice continued. And when you woke up when the doctor said you had to rest, you said you couldn't. You said the business needed you, that we needed the business. Her voice broke. I learned that day that needing people makes you weak, that showing vulnerability gets you hurt. So I built walls. I built them so high I locked everyone out. It was the first real thing she'd said all day. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I taught you that. And I'm sorry I learned it so well. Lucas cleared his throat. The patient, William, he died because he waited too long to ask for help. He was ashamed. He'd rather die than be vulnerable. And when Mom showed up at my door looking like him, I saw that shame. I saw what happens when people break. And I couldn't, he stopped. I couldn't let that be in my house, in my space. Because if I acknowledged it, I'd have to acknowledge that it could happen to anyone, even me. Even you, I agreed. Success isn't permanent. Wealth isn't guaranteed. The only thing that lasts is how we treat each other. Grace spoke up. Alice Lucas, I know you don't like me. I know you think I'm not educated enough, not sophisticated enough, not enough, period. But I want you to know something. Last night, Hunter and I were willing to sell our wedding rings to help your mother. Not because we're saints, because that's what you do when someone needs you. She pulled off her ring and held it up. This cost $90. It's probably worth $50 at a pawn shop, but I would have sold it without hesitation. Would you have sold your diamond earrings, Alice? Your Italian wallet, Lucas? The silence was damning. That's the difference, Grace said quietly. Not intelligence, not education, not class, just what we're willing to sacrifice for the people we love. I pulled out one final envelope. Hunter, Grace, come here. They approached slowly. Hunter looked nervous. Grace looked serene. You showed me what real love looks like, what sacrifice means when it costs you something you don't have. So I'm doing something now, not in my will, not after I die, but today. I handed them the envelope. Open it. Hunter opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a property deed and a check. What is this? He whispered. A house, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms near your school, with a big garden for Grace, and $500,000 to renovate it, furnish it, and have a cushion for the future. Grace's hand went to her mouth. Emma, we can't. You can. You will. This isn't charity. It's recognition. You passed a test that wasn't supposed to be passable. You showed me humanity still exists. This is too much, Hunter said, but he was crying. It's not enough. It will never be enough for what you gave me, but it's a start. Alice and Lucas watched this exchange. I saw emotions warring on their faces. Jealousy, shame, recognition. So they get a house now and we get conditions, Alice said, but her voice lacked heat. They get recognition now. You get opportunity. Which you choose to see it as is up to you. Robert packed up his documents. The therapy appointments are scheduled. The volunteer coordinators are expecting you. The clock starts today. And if we try? If we really try but still fail, Lucas asked. Then at least you tried, I said. That's more than you did when I was at your door. The therapist's office was neutral territory. Beige walls, comfortable chairs, a box of tissues that got used more often than not. We sat in a circle, all 5 of us. Emma, Alice, Lucas, Hunter, Grace. Dr. Patterson sat slightly apart, observing. Alice, Dr. Patterson prompted, you wanted to share something today. Alice looked at me. 6 months of therapy had changed her face somehow, not made her younger or older, just more real. I went to the shelter yesterday. The one where my grandmother died. She took a shaky breath. I met a woman there. Her name is Margaret. She reminded me of you, Mom. Strong, intelligent, just broken by circumstances. What did you do? I asked. I listened to her story, and then I helped her fill out job applications. It was small. It probably won't change her life. But I showed up. It was progress. Not redemption, just progress. Lucas spoke next. I'm working with a homeless healthcare program now, mobile clinic. We go to shelter street corners anywhere people need us. He paused. It's hard, seeing William in every face. But I'm learning to see past that, to see people. That's good, Hunter said, and meant it. We weren't fixed. We weren't a happy family singing songs and holding hands. But we were trying, messily, imperfectly, honestly. And that was something. Hunter and Grace's new house had a garden, a real garden, not professionally landscaped. Just Grace with her calloused hands and her knowledge of what grows in difficult soil. We gathered there for dinner. All of us, the first family dinner in the new house. Grace had cooked. Simple food because fancy never was her style. But there was enough, and it was made with love. I watched my family around this table. Alice and Thomas, Lucas and Jennifer, Hunter and Grace. We weren't perfect. Alice still sometimes made comments about money. Lucas still struggled with homeless patients. Hunter still worked too hard for too little pay. But Alice had shown up at the shelter 42 times so far. Lucas had treated 60 homeless patients, and Hunter had learned that being right wasn't the same as being righteous. Grace poured coffee. The good kind now, but served in the same chipped mugs from the old house. Some things don't need replacing. Mom, Alice said carefully, I've been thinking about grandmother, about what you said, about the cycle. Yes, I want to break it, really break it. Not just for my inheritance, but because... She stopped, started again. Because I don't want my children to learn what I learned, that people are disposable. Then don't teach them that, I said simply. Lucas added, I'm starting a fund for homeless health care, in William's name. It's not much yet, but it's something, Grace finished. Something is always better than nothing. We ate, we talked, we existed together in all our broken, healing complexity. I looked around this table and thought about wealth, real wealth, not the 58 million in my accounts, not the company, not the empire I'd built. This messy, imperfect, trying family. Hunter had broken the cycle not by being perfect, but by being present. Grace had shown me that wisdom isn't about education, but about attention. And Alice and Lucas. They were learning, slowly, painfully, but learning. The garden outside was full of flowers Grace had planted. Some died, some thrived. She tended all of them equally. That's what love looks like, I realized. Not giving up on the ones that struggle, just keeping your hands in the dirt, showing up, trying. I watched Grace pour coffee for Alice. Alice accepted it with something that might become gratitude. Small moments. That's what builds a life. Not grand gestures, not dramatic tests, just small moments of choosing each other. The sun set over the garden. We stayed at the table, talking, sometimes arguing, sometimes silent, but together. Imperfectly, messily, honestly together. And that was everything.